Hello everybody. Today I'm going to talk about my adventures in Europe, and yes, I kind of wanted to bring up this topic again because I am part European and I find my times there have just been a lot of fun, just a real blast, and I find them very enjoyable for the most part, and there's a lot of aspects that I really like about Europe, and I just wanted to share some stuff with you guys, and hopefully it'll give you maybe a better sense of knowledge of what these countries offer and how they're sort of maybe different from each other and how they're somewhat similar. And I wanted to in particular just talk about some of the experiences that I've had in each of the countries. And basically how I'm going to go through this is by how young I was. So basically at a very young age, my parents, my family, we have been going to Switzerland for almost once every 2 years. We really like to go there. We find it very enjoyable for the most part. We like a lot of what Europe has to offer, in particular Switzerland, especially since we can have a place to stay, since there's a lot of relatives that I have over there, all from my mother's side. So we try to go there once every 2 years, and basically what you have to understand is that Switzerland is not Sweden. A lot of Americans, I believe, get those two countries mixed up. And literally, I've asked people, and they literally say that, yeah, Switzerland is Sweden, and I say, no, Switzerland is not Sweden. Sweden is a Nordic country. It's like way up there. And Switzerland is like in Central Europe. Switzerland is surrounded by Italy, Germany, Austria, and France. So basically it's like a center, and within that center you also get people that do actually speak these different languages. You have a Swiss German dialect, which is basically what my mother's side was raised into. They speak a form of German. It's like a dialect. Kind of like how we have dialects here, but still different because they do say sometimes totally different words than what you would hear maybe in Germany. And sometimes even Germans have a hard time understanding the Swiss because the Swiss just have this really kind of strong dialect. And even within the Swiss German speaking community, there are different Swiss dialects. There's a Bern dialect, there's a Basel dialect. It's all like, when you get down to it, it's all like little broken up into little pieces and stuff. So to create this kind of a whole way of communicating. So again, I think the Swiss have a better understanding of understanding each other, but they also have different ways of speaking even within their own country. They have different Swiss dialects. So, and this is all speaking. This is no written form. They have no Swiss written form. They learn the written form like they learn, like how Austria and Germany learn the written form. Everyone learns the written form, but nobody technically speaks the written form. There's also an Austrian dialect, and there's various dialects, I'm sure, in Austria as well. So it's not all the same. It is fairly different for the most part, and it is interesting because I just kind of noticed this stuff as I was going at a very young age and looking at how it's sort of structured. And as far as sightseeing and such, you have to understand that Switzerland is landlocked, meaning that it is surrounded by Italy, France, Germany, and Austria, so therefore it has no ocean. The Swiss are more known for various different things. They're known for their chocolate, which is very, very good. If you know Lindt, or what other ones do they serve here? I believe Nestle as well is Swiss. They do serve really good chocolate, and I really would recommend their chocolate if you want to try some, because we do sell them here. I'm sure you could find Lindt somewhere in a local grocery store or something. I think it is a little bit more expensive here than it is over there, but the quality is just so good, so much better than Hershey's. I mean, for some reason I never really liked Hershey's. I'll eat it, but it's just not as good as Swiss chocolate. Swiss chocolate is just so good, and there's all these different kinds of chocolates. Like, they'll have ones with nuts in them, or they'll have white chocolate or dark chocolate, or all these different kinds of chocolates. Lindt has a fair amount of variety. But basically, as far as other things go, particularly dealing with food, if you are interested about that, is just basically that they have things like Swiss cheese, which is really good. For me, at least. I know Swiss cheese is probably not for everyone, because it does smell weird, I think. But when you actually taste it, it's actually, I think it's really good. And it's the one with the holes in them. But they also have all different kinds of cheeses. It's not just ones with holes in them. But usually when people in America, when they think of cheese and they think of Swiss cheese, they think of the ones with holes in them. But Switzerland has a lot of variety of cheese, and they actually have people who learn about cheese and who are in the cheese industry and do learn various things onto how to make the cheese and all of that stuff. And probably similar with chocolate as well. What else can I say? I think that's really all I can say about really the food. But they also have things like raclette, which is basically cooked potatoes and then you put cheese over it, and then you can put like sour cream and salsa, or you can put like, because that's what we usually do. But basically, the raclette itself is just potatoes with cheese on them, and just so good. And there's also fondue. And fondue, you can basically use chocolate or you can use cheese. Usually we use cheese, and you dip the cheese with, you dip the cheese, or you dip the bread in the cheese, and then you just basically eat it. That's basically what fondue is. And I think with chocolate, it can be various other things, like maybe marshmallows or strawberries. But basically that's what they're famous for. And you might be wondering, fondue sounds French. Well, there's also another portion of Switzerland where they speak French. That's the second biggest spoken language. Probably like how Spanish is probably the second most spoken language in maybe certain parts of the United States. It's the same thing, and kids learn French. They learn French before they even touch English at all, because it is basically their second language, because they do have a sector where they speak only French. And then you go to the Italian section, and they only speak Italian. So Italian is kind of like the third section, but it's rather smaller, I think, than the French. And then the Swiss German section is the biggest part or portion. In particular, probably because you have Austria and Germany sort of like right close to each other. So that would make sense that people more from the northern area are Swiss German speaking, and then far to the west you have the French speaking, and then towards the south you have the Italian speaking part. So they're basically a mix of all of these different cultures and all of these different languages, and basically that's really how Switzerland is structured for the most part. Now, as far as what you could be expected to see in Europe, or see in particular in Switzerland. When I go over there, we always go to various different towns. In particular, places like Bern, Basel, Interlaken, Lausanne, which is in the French section, Geneva, and they're all very beautiful. And really what Switzerland is somewhat, I guess you could say, famous for is they have a lot of lakes. A lot of lakes, and they're not, in a sense, like our lakes, because their lakes are massive. Okay, their lakes are huge, very, very huge, very huge lakes. In particular, in Lucerne, there are lakes that go on for miles and miles and miles on end. Also in Lausanne and around Geneva as well, you have lakes there too. You also have a main river, which is the Rhine, that goes through Switzerland, and it goes through Germany as well. So it goes through Germany and then Switzerland, and they use the Rhine for a lot of transport. They use that for a lot of transportation. Because when I went to Basel, which is basically the city that is along the French-German border, it's like right close to where it is, and basically that's where the Rhine goes down, and that's basically a huge center for Switzerland, because they can transport things, and and then the Rhine continues, and they can go to all these different locations and stops, and it makes for a lot of good commerce. But again, what they don't have in ocean, they sort of make up with lakes and rivers. They also have waterfalls as well, tons and tons of different lakes, and in particular, Zurich as well is also a big commerce place, and they also have a lake, and it's really huge. Zürichsee, and that's basically how you say lakes. You say See, and it's spelled S-E-E, like how we spell sea, but it's pronounced say. So basically, a See is a lake. As far as if you're going for the regular German form, and I think that's usually how Swiss people say it too. But basically, not only does it have like lakes and rivers, it has gorgeous mountains. In particular, Zermatt is really famous for the Matterhorn. And if you go to Disneyland, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you go to Disneyland, you'll see the Matterhorn, and you'll see how they have all the little Swiss cantons. And cantons are basically like states, like how we have the United States. They have like little areas that are somewhat, counties. And you see that on there, on as you enter the ride, and that's really what Switzerland is also really famous for is that mountain, as well as there's other mountains too. In particular, around Interlaken, there is the Eiger Monk and Jungfrau, and basically there's actually a funny story behind that. It's actually, Eiger is supposed to be this kind of aggressive male figure. The monk is like you say, a monk, someone who is part of the church, and Jungfrau actually means virgin. So the monk is protecting the Jungfrau from Eiger, because that's how it works, how the mountains are named. You go Eiger, Monk, Jungfrau, like that, basically. I might be doing it the wrong way. Like, it may actually go this way or go this way, but it depends on what angle you're looking at it from. But basically, that's the story. Just that this monk is trying to protect the Virgin from pervert Iger. That's basically what the whole story means, really. And I find that funny that's how the mountains work. But that's also really worth taking into consideration. There's also a lot of cities, in particular, in Switzerland. Some are probably a little bit more clean than others, but for the most part, a lot of their cities are really, really cool. And no city feels the same. They all feel really unique to one another. I could really pick out what Basel looks like, and what Zurich looks like, and what Geneva looks like. They're all different, and they're all unique in their own special way. And that's what I really love about Switzerland. It's just so diverse, and it's very, even though it's somewhat structured in the same sense, because again, Europe they do have that kind of structure with like the church, and then they have the town, the town that sort of surrounds it, and they have that same structure, but all the churches are different, and all of the way that the towns are just formulated, and then their surroundings are significantly, I think, different. But for the most part, you do get the similar styles, but they're all fairly interesting and very nice. I really do find myself really enjoying a lot of these things, because it's different than what I'm exposed to in America, because I feel like in America everything is sort of just so structured in the same way. And then when I come here, there's just all of this little bits of diversity, and I really, really find myself enjoying that aspect. I really love how Switzerland is just so different. That's what I really, really like about it. And I just think that's really cool. And there's just tons of cities. I mean, I could go on of a list of how many cities I would recommend you seeing. In particular, if you want to know the capital, basically the capital of Switzerland is Bern, and basically Bern is actually a sort of, in a translation, meaning bear, and the Bern flag. Each canton or each county sort of has a flag, and the Bern flag is of a bear, and they also have bears. You can go and actually see. What happens is usually that they take domesticated bears. Sometimes they're maybe sold off, and they're given to Switzerland as sort of like a sort of symbol for Bern. In particular, how we see the eagle. That's the way that Bern sees basically and how Switzerland sees basically their capital. And I think that's really the main gist of Europe. And I have to say that, or for Switzerland in this case, I have to say though, a lot of this stuff is just really, really cool. I like how the churches look. I like all these old-fashioned castles. I like how they even have Roman ruins in Switzerland. I find that really cool, because at one point ancient Rome was occupied Switzerland at one point. And it's just really cool. There's just a lot of history. There's a lot of nature. It's very green. Switzerland is very, very green. Reason being is that there's a lot of rain. And it snows during the winter. You can go in winter when it snows. And there's just as a result, there's just a lot of trees. There's a lot of farmland as well. But is a lot of nature. Um, it's it's very nice to see that nature, and it's really enjoyable. I really find myself getting lost in it for the most part. And I apologize, my phone's ringing. Let's see if my parents will answer this stupid phone. Sounds like they will. Yeah. Okay. Basically, what I was saying is that for the most part, when you're talking about Switzerland, you have to understand it is fairly small. And also, another thing to note is that it not only does it have a lot of nature, a lot of mountainous type-ish nature, like with trees and hills, like very green. Not only that, but it is also very highly has a really very sophisticated transportation system. I absolutely adore their transportation system. I love taking the train. I love taking the tram, and basically the tram is just like, how something you maybe see in San Francisco, but a little bit more sophisticated. And what I love is just that things just kind of go non-stop. They make sure, and you have to be there, okay? And part of Swiss culture, I think, has to do with the fact that you have to be there at a certain time. You have to be there exactly when it says it's going to leave. And that includes everything. That includes the bus, that includes the tram, that includes the train. And the train is like the major transportation part of getting from one city to the next. A lot of people in Europe in particular don't actually own a car or even have a license, because it is so expensive to get one, and also because they don't really need it, because they can just use the transportation systems that they have to get from point A to point B. But basically, they just use the train, and you pay a certain fee, and then you go and ride the train, and you go from point A, point B, and you can ride the trams and the buses and all of those things, and those are all within like city things, like Zurich and Bern in particular, and Basel as well. They're really big, so that's why they have trams, and basically they transport you to whatever part of the city you want to go. It can get confusing at times for people who do not know really how the system works, but me being there for actually a couple of months really allowed me to get the hang of it. It is fairly easy to understand for the most part. I mean, you just have to kind of get a time schedule of all the trains, and they do have these time schedules where you can get them at the train station, and basically that's what you do. You take that and then you go, and it's very efficient. It's so much easier, and for the most part the trains arrive on time. It's not like here where buses arrive maybe an hour late. That wouldn't happen in Switzerland. People wouldn't really tolerate that. They're very exact. They like to make things consistent and make sure that everything goes in order and goes on time, and that everybody is comfortable and happy there on time. They're very precise, and when you don't follow their precisity, you're going to miss the train, you're going to miss the tram, you're going to miss it. But the cool thing is that if you miss it, there's always some other way for you to get from point A to point B. They have a very sophisticated transportation system. It's very precise and I think really well done. I mean, they run that transportation system really well. And it's a lot less expensive than actually going out and buying a car in Europe, because again, you have to fill it up with gas, and in Europe gas costs a lot more than it does here. And when you go on the train, it actually gets you to places where you need to go, and even if you want to go to like a really small town, there will be a train that can get you there. Sometimes you may have to get off a train and then get on another one, but it's fairly easy, and they make sure that they can schedule that for you so that when you get off a train, you can go on another train. But it's very sophisticated. I really like their transportation system. So much fun to just sit and relax and look at the scenery on the train. Nice to see the city on the tram. It's just very nice. It's just a nice feeling. Unlike, actually taking a car and then being worried if you get lost. Because if you're on a train, you don't need to worry if you get lost. Unless you go on the wrong train. But there's always somebody there to help you to make sure that you can get onto the right train. And then in the stations, there's always someone who should speak English or somebody who knows a little bit of English. But for the most part, that's really a lot of what Switzerland has to offer. It's just very it just has a lot of things. There's a lot of very old, beautiful looking cities. There's a lot of beautiful lakes and mountains and scenery. There's a lot of green. I find a lot of in America, a lot of the things are fairly dry, at least from where I live. And it's so nice to go over there and see the green and see how pretty it is. And you can actually swim sometimes you can actually swim in the lakes. I went on, and you can also take boats too. Like, I went on a boat once, and you could actually see people going in the water off these like little stops that they had, similar to how you would swim along a beach. And basically what they do is, they just wave to you, and it's just so much fun. It's really nice to see, and the people, for the most part, are very friendly. I really like how welcoming they are, and it's a lot of fun. I mean, I wouldn't trade that for anything. And I think that's really all you kind of need to know. I mean, from my adventures that I've had there just are so many that I could just go on for hours explaining all of them. But there's a lot to see, there's a lot to do, and sometimes it depends though upon the weather, because the weather does change often. You can have it raining at one point, and then all of a sudden the clouds clear, and then it's fine, and it's sunny. I think, actually, as far as I'm concerned, I think July, August is the time where it actually gets hot, and it actually gets as hot as it can get in like California, from where I live. It can get to that level of hot, and you can actually, that's when people actually go out and bathe, and go along, you can like swim along the Rhine River, just as long as you stay within designated locations. And I did that once, and that was a lot of fun. And it's just so pretty. It's just so fun. I mean, I wouldn't trade those experiences, for any other experience ever, because they're just, it's so great. I don't really know how I can describe to you how awesome it is. But I think really what you have to wrap around is that there is something that it has to offer, and for me it's offered a lot, and it really is eye-opening, especially when you go to some place like Switzerland, because there's just so much there within such small, because again, Switzerland is a really small country, but it's so diverse and so intricate, and it's just a lot of fun. I've been to so many different parts. Everyone's so unique. I couldn't pick tell you which one's my favorite because they're all just really cool. I really, really find myself being engrossed in it. And yeah, if you like anything from what I've said about it, I mean, I could be more than happy to answer questions. But basically, that's really a gist of what Switzerland has to offer. It has things that America would not have. It just does. I mean, it has things that you couldn't see maybe in any other place. That's why I think I find it just so unique. It's just so peaceful, and it's very, people are very open-minded, and I do feel welcome, and it is a place that I think will always be a part of me personally, because again, I am part Swiss, so Swiss Alps, and yes, I think that's really all I can say about it. It just has all these different things and really, really nice stuff that you can look at and visualize, and also things that you can do, and yeah, it's just great, really great, just awesome. But I think that's really all I can say about Switzerland for the most part. It's a fun country, definitely worth checking out. If you have a chance to go, just do it. Just don't care, just go, because it's a lot of fun. So I think that's really all I can say about Switzerland. But I wanted to move on now to a country that, again, we're kind of going in order within my life stage. So the next country that I went to was France, particularly Paris, and also little areas within France. Now France is very, it has different, like, let's just say it is different from Switzerland. The homes, how the homes look, are a lot different. The way that everything is kind of structured as far as landscape, because once you go into France, once you cross the border from Switzerland to France, it's very farm-like. There's just miles and miles and miles of farmland. It's very flat. France, from sort of the eastern part from where I've crossed, it's fairly flat. You do see mountains. I mean, France does have its mountains, but from me entering from there, I've really only seen, for the most part, like the farmland there, and it's very, very vast. As far as like little towns are concerned, there's one in particular called Colmar where I find myself really enjoying, and I really went as a kid, and I can totally show you this. Colmar is famous in France for their storks, and they actually do have real storks. They have storks that make nests in Colmar, and storks are kind of a sort of I don't want to say a mascot, but they kind of just like to sell storks, because storks fly around there in that area. And my grandfather, he gave me a stork when I was very little, and this is the stork. He's so cute. I love the stork. And it's just really, really cool. Really, really cool. It has basically a similar type feel with, like, has churches, it has nice homes, nice restaurants, very beautiful flowers along the houses. Like, they have really nice, like, flower set pieces, but the styles are just so different, but they're unique in their own little special way. They have a little stream, and you can actually go along this stream. So you can take a little boat, and this person will basically row you all along the little stream. um, and you do see a lot within Colmar. It's really nice, and it's that nice old, and you'll see like the cobbled streets, and Switzerland has this too, like really cobbled streets. Like they don't pave those streets; those streets are cobbled, and those streets are just so old, and they don't really want to change them because it's just kind of a part of, their kind of, I guess, culture really. So why would they change them? And I really like how they're just cobbled stones, and they don't really need to pave the roads anyway because cars don't really necessarily go through there so much, and when they do, it doesn't really affect anything, so they just keep cobbled stones, and you can just walk along the cobbled stones and you can see like all around you all these different things, people going, passing by. It's really nice. Colmar is a lot of fun. Very, very, very pretty, and a lot of shops and a lot of nice scenery, in particular with the houses and the churches, and and also the pretty farmland that surrounds it. It's really it's a lot of fun. Very nice. Now the next part of France I want to talk about is the big one, Paris. Now Paris is, how do I want to describe Paris? It's very big. There are its very nice clean parts like a city you'd expect, and some parts that are a little bit more dirty. But Paris is very, very, I think, artsy. Paris has a lot of artistic type things. In particular, things like the Eiffel Tower, the Palace Versailles, which actually is not in Paris, but a little bit further from Paris, but it's actually very, very nice and very, very, very artsy. I do remember the halls. I remember walking through these halls of Versailles, and I sort of remember bits of like there being like pretty pictures and then mirrors, and it's just there's just a lot of art, and it's just very pretty. It's very beautiful. It's very appealing to look at. There's also things like the Moulin Rouge, which I don't really want to go into because I only saw it from the outside, and the Moulin Rouge is actually fairly small. It's not really that big. It's fairly small from when I saw it. They might have done things differently because I went when I was 9, so they maybe made it bigger. I'm not sure, but when I went, I remember looking at it and going, "That's really, really small." And it also has a lot of nature actually within Paris as well. There's some nice parks. I remember me and my family, we actually ate sandwiches like French baguette type sandwiches, and we sat like right by where the Eiffel Tower was. And then there was this nice green area where you could sit, and there were some trees, and it's just very nice. It's very peaceful. It's a nice surrounding. Just awesome. What else about Paris can I say? Paris is also very also not only is it vast and very artsy, but it has a lot of things to see, in particular with things like the Notre Dame, which actually is fairly dark. It is a very, very darkish church. You go inside that church and it's like it is rather not so much lit, and it is more Gothic in style, and but it's really a nice church. It's beautiful in how it looks, just gorgeous. There's also a lot of just nice parts of the city where you can see, like, with shops, and you can also get a sense of how Paris is actually very busy-esque. And when you look down from like the Eiffel Tower, if you go all the way up to the Eiffel Tower, you go up to Notre Dame, the upper level of Notre Dame, you'll see how Paris is very, very vast, and how it is very busy. It's like a city. It's like something that you would see similar to LA, but it is in itself encompassed with a lot of old things, and I find it fascinating. In particular, seeing all of the cars pass by, and I like how when you go up a particular point, you can actually see different landmarks of Paris, and it's very cool. It's a lot of fun. I remember parts of it. I don't remember all of it. I didn't really appreciate these things so much when I was little, but when I look really back on it, I'm so glad that I was able to go, and I was able to witness that in my life. It's just so great. It's just so awesome. I can't describe to you how I'm just like, yeah. And when I was a kid, even though things were a little bit more difficult to understand, it was still nice to be able to experience it, for the most part. And Paris was just one of those really big things, and it was just nice to see all of these things that Paris had to offer, because it does have a lot to see. In particular, the most famous being the Eiffel Tower and the Notre Dame, as well as another church. However, the name escapes me at this point, but it is white and it's kind of dome shaped. I forget its name, but it's also very nice. There's also just, yeah, nice parks. I believe we went to maybe a couple of parks to look around, because they do seem to like to put parks in Paris, and I think that they do like to have little bits of nature, and I really like that, because usually when I just don't think you would see such a park in some place like LA, or you would see such a park in New York, even though there is a park in New York. It's just the parks are just fairly different, and just seeing all these places and going along the river as well, and ooh, I can't remember that river's name, it escapes me. But I remember at one point when me and my family, we went along this river, and you go across this one bridge, and they say you have to, I guess if you kiss somebody, then that means that that'll be like your life partner, or something of that nature. I can't necessarily remember, but I do remember, and I think I just turned to one of my relatives, and I just kissed them instead, because I didn't really know what it meant when I was little. So yeah, I mean, it's just, Paris is really nice. I mean, it is a city, so obviously, you're going to get certain parts of it that may not be as clean, and it is hot during the summer. Went during the summer, very, very hot, and it can get as hot as it does get here, at least from California or wherever other place it can get hot, but it's very, very, a very fun place to be, and it actually has shade, and that's a good thing. I liked that it had shade, for the most part. But that's really all I think I can say about Paris. There's just a lot of nice landmarks. There's a lot of energy, and it's just very fun and engaging. Next place I wanted to talk about was Italy, and Italy I might discuss for a little while, because Italy has actually a lot to offer. Italy, I've been to Florence and Rome. Those are the only two that I've been to. But let me first talk about Rome, because I went to Rome first. We went on a train. from all the way to Rome. Similar how we did with France, where we took a train from Switzerland to France, and then me and my family took a train from Switzerland to Rome. It took us 9 hours. It was a really, really long train ride, but it was during the night time, so we tried to sleep through it, even though that was kind of difficult. But beside the point, Rome is, how should I say this? Rome is very, it's a little bit more dirty, I think, than France, than Paris specifically, because a lot of how it's structured is very, almost like very, almost, I want to say very butchy, like you have this big Colosseum like right here, and then you have like little streets right here, and then you have this big bulk of something else big there. And I think that's really how I can explain it. It's very, maybe butchy is like the wrong word, but just very, like, just big, and then, you know, just very mishmash, very mishy in your face, kind of. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's actually very unique and interesting, and that's why I liked going through Rome. The streets, again, the old style streets, cobblestones. The Colosseum, awesome. Like, it's really creepy to actually go through this Colosseum, because some parts of it, that's the thing too, is it's actually nice and cool in the Colosseum when you go inside, because it does feel like it's you know, because it is this big building and it tries to block out the sun. So, and we went during the summer, which was unbelievably hot. I mean, I encourage people, if you can go any other time, go any other time, because during the summer it's just so hot. And there's no shade. That's the problem too. Like, Rome doesn't have, it's not like Paris where you can find like nice big trees. In Rome they just have like these little trees that don't provide you any shade whatsoever. But basically, when I went to the Colosseum, it was just really like, whoa. I really loved touching it. And I don't know, that sounds weird, but like, just like, it's just such an old part of history, and it's just so fascinating, but so haunting too. Especially at points when you like realize, yeah, these were actually where gladiators like fought and like killed each other. You know, you kind of get a little bit, but at the same time, it's just really cool. It's very big. You can go on different levels. I think there's only 2 levels actually. That's like the bottom level, and then you can go up. I think it's we went through an elevator, yeah. And you can just go up and you can walk around basically the Colosseum. They sometimes actually do performances actually inside the Colosseum, which is really, really cool. And I mean by performances, like they'll maybe sing or do something. And it's actually interesting because when I went inside the Colosseum, they don't block off what was underneath it. So what you're actually seeing, if you don't see like a board that's maybe covering like the inside part of, or like the ring where the gladiators fought against each other, if you don't see that board, that's really what's all that was underground. And they made like these kind of like underground sort of like mazes in order to like put certain things in certain places, because again they would have things come out of the up on top of where they were keeping everything like underground. Maybe they kept animals there or certain things. So it is interesting in that respect. Just a really cool building. A lot of it has faded when you look at how it's, you know, went down over the years, but there is still a lot to see from that place. It's still fairly massive and really, really cool. Also went to the Vatican and various other spots, the Trevi Fountain, very beautiful. and the Vatican is just, I'm not Catholic, but that place is crazy. There's just so much art, so much stuff to see, and it was interesting because it was just so hot that I wore a tank top, and apparently for some reason, and you will see this, you will see like literally like almost full blown like naked statues in different areas, and then they tell you that you have to cover yourself up. So I covered in order to keep myself cool, we would cover myself, my parents would cover me with like a towel, a really cool towel that we would just wet from the hotel, and basically I would wear this, and it actually helped because then it would let me in, because if I were to keep my sort of spaghetti strap top, they wouldn't let me in because they don't allow that in the Vatican, because you have to cover yourself. You have to cover your shoulders. They say shoulders. I don't think they're really specific on like the bottoms that you wear, but I know that you have to kind of cover your shoulders. They don't like it when people wear when they just come in with like bikini tops and stuff. So just something to note. We actually went on a tour of the Vatican, and I encourage people to actually get a tour booked ahead of time, because you get to skip all the line. The lines are just massive to get into the Vatican. I mean, and especially during the summer, massive. So plan ahead, baby. But there's just so much cool art, so much cool statues, and a lot of cool things to see. But really cool and very interesting, just really amazing to look at, and it's a lot of fun, and it was nice eating Italian food, and doing all of those things there. The Spanish Steps were also really cool. There's just a ton of stuff, and that's the thing. I think Rome really tries to put all of these things kind of in your face, and you just kind of go whoa, and then when you kind of focus in on something, it's actually really cool, and you can really get invested in it. So I think that's really all I can say about Rome. It's just very awesome. I think I'm repeating awesome a lot, but it's just really massive and big. And the next city in Italy that I saw was Florence, and Florence is fairly smaller than Rome, but it's very beautiful. Really nice churches, very nice. There's also some shops as well. And a lot of nice art as well. There's a lot of places you can just kind of walk, and it feels a little bit more mellow than Rome, because you can just kind of take your time with Florence, unlike Rome, where I felt like we were a little bit rushed, because there are all these different places you have to go and you have to see. And in Florence, it's a little bit more laid back, because you can just kind of take your time, because it's not like you have to go really from one area to the next, because it is rather more smaller. I think it's called the Dome. I'm not sure, but that's a famous. I learned about this in history, but it's escaping me the name. I think it's the Dome, and basically it's this really nice church made out of marble, and it actually has colored bits in it as well, and it's very and it has a tower kind of too, and you can go inside, and it's very cool. A really nice town with a lot of nice areas within it that you can look at and that you can see, and yeah, there's also another church as well. However, that church I wasn't really necessarily impressed with, but I think the Dome really stands out on its own. It's really a landmark in Florence, but still a very nice town. There is also, I believe, a river as well. And again, it still has its dirty parts similar to Rome, and sometimes those dirty parts really smell in the summer. So I definitely would encourage that people maybe try to go at a time where it isn't so hot, because when we went around the summertime, it was crazy hot, and it stayed hot because it didn't get dark until like maybe 9, and then that's when it finally started to cool off. So just be prepared. It gets really warm during the summer. But I think that's really all I can say about Italy as a whole. It's really cool, very nice, and very just a lot of things, just a lot of different things, and they're very almost very sort of in your face and very almost, I guess maybe what I mean by butch is they're just very bulky, but they're a very pretty whoa type bulky. So it's just different. It's just a different way of how they structure things, and how your surroundings are completely different. Next place I wanted to talk about was actually Germany. I apologize, I skipped over this, but I haven't really seen much of Germany. All I've seen is Heidelberg because my uncle lives there, and it's a really nice city. And also I've been to parts, I guess, of the Black Forest, and the Black Forest, or Schwarzwald it's called, are also really nice. There's a lot of trees, like just lots and lots of trees. And then you have like these cuckoo clock shops, and we went to one cuckoo clock shop, and my brother got a cuckoo clock. And really nice, very famous for their Schwarzwälder Torte in Germany. But I haven't really seen a whole lot of Germany. All I've seen is basically Heidelberg and parts of Schwarzwald, but nothing so much in Germany. But Heidelberg is very nice. I believe it has a river as well. It also has a nice church. There's tons of shops there too. It's just really cool. Really nice. I want to say Germany is kind of similar to Switzerland, and I think the sense how they kind of maybe how the towns maybe are structured, but I think the surroundings are a bit different, because I think Switzerland does have a little bit more hills, and in Germany it's probably a little bit more forest, and because you have to go sort of through Schwarzwald, because that's really basically where it is along like the Swiss-German border. Once you go across there, you kind of enter into Schwarzwald. But yeah, it's really nice, really enjoyable in Germany, and just a lot of fun. But I would expect that a lot of it is fairly similar to Switzerland, but it also is unique in its own way as well. But I haven't really seen a whole lot of Germany, so I really can't say. But the last one I wanted to talk about, and then we're done, is London. And I went to London, England. This is the most recent one that I went to, and it is so cool. London is just awesome, from the churches, from Westminster Abbey to even Abbey Road. I actually went along Abbey Road, and you don't know what Abbey Road is. Basically, it's the where the Beatles walked across for one of their covers for their albums. And there's also things like the palace, and you get to see how they have like this sort of march that they do, and it's all of these like English guards, and by I mean English guards, basically the guards that their names escape me, but basically they're the ones with the very big, puffy, fur-like hats, and they basically are in charge of sort of, protecting the Queen, protecting, like, basically the Queen of England, protecting sort of the royal family, and protecting sort of the landmarks. In particular, like, also the Tower of London has these guards. And basically what they do when they come up to the palace, to where the Queen lives, they do this kind of thing where they actually play music, and they try to make it sort of like entertaining as they go through, and they're just these tons of guards, and they just march so well, and they really try to, I think, put on a little bit of a show. It's kind of funny to see that, and then you see how they walk, and how basically when the whole kind of introduction to them is over, and once they enter the palace, they kind of have some people go, and they usually, when they're just kind of, what they are supposed to do is just, they're supposed to stand there and like not move, and they have like this little box, and then within that little box they kind of sometimes walk out, and then they walk back and forth and back and forth, and basically that's what they do like all day. I mean, they just walk back and forth, watch, and just make sure nothing bad happens. And yeah, and sometimes they carry like even an old-fashioned type-ish gun, and it's really cool. They're just a lot of fun to watch, and it's nice to see them. And sometimes they come in on horses too, as they enter the palace, and they're just basically the guard that takes care of the royal family, and all of their kind of somewhat landmarks, because they have guards actually in the I believe it's called Tower of London, and basically the Tower of London is actually where they send people to prison and they torture people, which is fairly creepy. Sort of similar to the sort of gladiator thing in Rome. It was a creepy feeling walking through there, but basically they kind of highlight to you, what they did during this time period, and basically these were prisoners. And also now in the Tower of London is sort of where they have all of the jewels and crowns of all the kings and queens and things of that nature. And you'll even see Westminster Abbeys where they actually have buried some of the kings and queens. It's actually even a burial within itself, so that's really fascinating. And that's why I find London to be in particular very fascinating, because it actually has things sort of kind of mixed together, and I think that's funny. I think that's what makes London unique. It mixes stuff, it mixes the jewels with the fact that that's what they used for to basically torture and execute people or execute traitors, but it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of stuff to see. I believe it's called St. Paul's Cathedral. I could be wrong, but it's basically one of those dome-shaped things, again, similar to in France. And basically that's where Mary Poppins, that certain part where she says, like, feed the birds, and you see, like, this somewhat dome-like looking building. That's actually a church, and that's that church right there. And they have really cool transportation systems, again, with a bus. Those double-decker buses, those are really, really fun. And yeah, there's just these really, really cool monuments, and I remember being really engaged in everything that I saw. There's also also the London Bridge, which is also very massive and huge, and how they constructed it, really cool. You can tell that London is fairly spread out, sort of similar, I think, to France in that respect. It's kind of spread out when you take a step back. There's also the Parliament, which is very beautiful, with like the clock. Just a lot of things. A lot of things that are just really cool to just look at and to go into and to explore. Just fun. Just from what I've told you, that's really what a lot of Europe has to offer. It's just a lot of fun and a lot of different things to see. But basically, I think that's really all I can say about these ones. I apologize if this was a little bit long, but it was a random video Sunday, and this kind of has been going through my mind, and I felt like I should really, share it. I think it's really nice that I'm able to do this to share, and that's really the goal of what I'm doing here. Is I'm just trying to share things with you. That's all I'm trying to do. And sometimes that may take a longer time for me to explain, but I think from what I've explained to you, I think it really does highlight to you what to expect. But if you have any questions, comments, concerns, more than happy to answer them. And until next time, bye-bye.